Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time looking at my week 1 match in the XPDLA against Queen Eyelene and her Mad Hatterines. This is my second season in this league. I had a really strong showing last season, going 8-1 in the regular season, but was unfortunately unable to win my semifinals match. But I am back again in the Flair division looking to claim a championship in this league. I think it's a very fun league to play in, and so I'm back at it again, trying a new team out and seeing if I can have slightly better results. But before we get into this video, we're going to take a look at the team I drafted so you have a sense of where my team build is coming from, and then the team that Queen Eyelene had available to her. So, the team I built is going to be really, really similar to another team I recently constructed. I opted to take Zapdos in the first round. I thought Zapdos is just a really fun mon to play with, and it opens up a lot of options to build around. And so I was not intending to get Mega Diancie again in this league. I ran it last season. I had a really successful season with Mega Diancie, but I wanted to try out a different Mega. I had Mega Lopunny as a piece I was eyeing, or Mega Mawile again as a mon I wanted to use, just based off where I was on the draft position, what I thought would fall to me on round 2. Unfortunately, neither of them were able to reach it back to me, and I ended up with Mega Diancie again. Not that that's a problem, just, a little redundant in this league, and I expect that some of my Diancie play is going to be more readily checked this season. But I got Mega Diancie to play with again. I've got Scizor as a really good pivot piece to kind of feed into Mega Diancie, give some checks between each other. Just a really solid Steelmon overall. The Nidoking as a really strong breaker with Sheer Force, Life Orb. The Poison Ground type is really helpful. Has that Gen 1 move pool, so lots of options. Very easy to run it physical or special. So I'm really excited for what Nidoking can bring. Silvally as another piece of additional pivot play around. Obviously, gives me every typing. The nice thing about Silvally in a team like this is that I intentionally don't flesh out some of my typings as well as I can, but that's okay because Silvally helps to check some of them. I've got myself a Cinderace. Cinderace is just a really good pivot mon. Alongside the Mega Diancie and the Zapdos, my team is just really strong at being anti-hazard. Obviously, the Magic Bounce from Mega Diancie is helpful. The Court Change from Cinderace can be helpful. Just the general defog support of Zapdos or some of my other pieces like Scizor or Silvally can be really helpful as well. Chestnut, really good typing, having that good edge quake protection, which is really, really helpful because my Mega Diancie Zapdos core are really fragile to predicts with the Edgequake, and so having a really safe retreat option from something that has strong options there is really, really solid. And then that spike stacking can be really helpful in some matches to just exert a lot of pressure and force things to die. Licky Licky, the piece I lacked last season, I'm really happy I have this season, is just a really strong wish support. I didn't really have that last season, so pieces tended to slowly dwindle down, and so just being able to keep things alive was just something I really thought would be helpful in this go around. Pyukumuku, I have been on a kick with Pyukumuku since my draft in XPDLA. I've drafted it, I think this is the 7th time I've drafted it since XPDLA. And so I'm really happy to have it on a team here. I know it's not always the most popular mon. It's a 4-point piece, so really Pyukumuku is the utility you get out of it. It's kind of how you make it successful. So I'm going to try to bring some of that to this league. And then it's just some low tier pieces that I feel like may have value as the season goes on. Smeargle, just if there's an opportunity to set Spore and Sticky Webs, and I feel like the opponent doesn't have a good ability to address webs, then Smeargle becomes a very valuable piece to just give me huge momentum. Things like Nidoking are really, really oppressive in web. Scizor can do a lot of work once we can get past some speed tiers. Mega Diancie really just demolishes if nothing can come in for a revenge kill because they don't outspeed it. So I feel like that has potential. And then finally, Honchkrow. I've seen it be very effective in some games just because of its Moxie ability. It has good stab options with Dark Flying. Sucker Punch really lets it come in on things and be able to claim kills it may not otherwise be able to get just because of its lackluster 71 speed. And then it also has a really usable special attack set. It's a 105. So if I'm in a position to need a special attack, then the Honchkrow is in a really good position to provide that. And so I figure that it offers a lot to work with, and I'm going to see if I can get something out of it this season. So that's the team I drafted. I'm really content with my draft. I hit all the typings in Ascent. Obviously, I'm relying on Sylvale for the dragon and a couple of other types, but technically they're there. And then I know my dark type isn't that great, but again, Sylvale is there to offer it, so I'm not too worried about that. And then I've got a lot of versatility to play with because things like Nidoking, things like Smeargle can do a lot of sets if I want them to do that. And then things like Diancie and Nidoking and Sylvale have a lot of mixed set opportunities they can run. So I just pressure a lot with a lot of my pieces, and I don't exactly have to run it one way or another. I can make it match dependent, which I'm very fond of. Uh, so we're gonna look at my match against Queen Eyelene. She's got a lot of similar things to what I got. It's a very fun little week one matchup because she's got the Mega Scizor to go against my Scizor. I'm not too worried about it. Mega Scizor struggles to break Pyukumuku, which is really nice. It struggles to deal with Zapdos, which is really nice. So Mega Scizor is not in a great spot, and it can't protect itself from the static on a Zapdos. Clefable, obviously dealing with Clefable is going to be a problem week to week just because Clefable can do a lot, offers a lot of sets. You need to be able to check it with most of the pieces you have on your team in some manner or another, or you just give it a free window to be oppressive. Nidoqueen to go against my Nidoking. The thing that concerns me here is the Nidoqueen speed tier really incentivizes that it could run something like Scarf, and my team is not well positioned for a Scarf Nidoqueen. If I have to guess what it's going to do attack wise, I have a safe switch in obviously if I decide to run Licky Licky, but if Licky Licky's not there, I'm playing a guessing game on what Nidoqueen's going to do, and that becomes a concern. Latias, that 110 speed stat is notable because it forces my Diancie pretty much exclusively into a timid nature. It doesn't give me a lot of wiggle room there. The Superior is probably the scariest thing that's coming this week, just because its ability to sub Leaf Storm and Leech Seed or Toxic and just really pressure me or glare. And so I just need to be extra, extra cautious of the Superior because it just threatens a lot against me. Carbink to go against my Diancie, I guess. It's a cute little mon. I don't expect it to show up, but it's there to offer pressure. The Moltres is there, but it has no way to really pressure the Mega Diancie. It has very lackluster moves outside of Stab. I think it can run Steel Wing, which it doesn't really have a great physical set. It's just a really weird thing overall to run, but I guess it can show up. The Keldeo is in a really weird spot against my team because Keldeo can't really use a water attack against Pyukumuku all that well. Sacred Sword is a physical attack, so I can run a physically defensive Pyukumuku and wall out its best fighting attack just because of how it is, unless it's going to specifically counter that and run something else. And then it just doesn't have great coverage moves. It doesn't want to run Flip Turn if I'm running like a Rocky Helmet Pyukumuku because it really punishes momentum, but it just really struggles to exert a lot of pressure against me as long as Pyukumuku is alive and healthy. But it has potential to be a problem if it runs like a Scarf set that obviously is concerned because it can outspeed and pressure me pretty heavily with Surf if Pyukumuku is not there to handle it. Snorlax, very wary. It may be used as a strong Diancie check, like an AV. Snorlax can really shut down a special Mega Diancie, which I'm generally incentivized to run here, as I need coverage moves for the Nidoqueen, and just having a better powered Psychic attack and Mystical Fire for the Scizor on a Predict is really, really important. And then Raichu, not super concerned about it showing up. Doesn't really have a great matchup overall. Doesn't really pressure me all that well overall, but it's something to be aware of. So with all that in mind, we'll look at the team I built. Going into it, I got the Mega Diancie, Moonblast, Mystical Fire, Psychic. It's really all I need. Moonblast hits virtually everything I want to for really strong damage, with the exceptions of Scizor and Nidoqueen. So if Scizor comes in and I hit it with Moonblast, obviously I have to leave. No ability for me to stay in on that. And then I can threaten the Nidoqueen with Psychic afterwards, just because Nidoqueen doesn't like that Psychic, as long as it's not Scarf, I'm in a pretty good position to do massive amounts of damage to it. So just something to try to track to see if I'm in a position to KO it. And then max speed, max special attack, because again, I have to speed tie with the Latias. Cinderace, I debated between Boots and Expert Belt. I don't think she's going to be incentivized to run rocks against me. I don't see that being particularly helpful. I'm not concerned about Toxic Spikes, but if she does force rocks up, and she has two good rock setters in Nidoqueen and Clefable, and also technically another setter in Carbink, I am in a really bad spot because I'm not going to run any sort of defog this week. And so I didn't want to take the risk that she forces them to get onto the field, because if she forces them up, then Cinderace is just in a really bad spot to manage rocks in this game. And so I opt for safety over maybe more potent options like an Expert Belt. But Pyro Ball, great stab option. Zen Headbutt, really specifically to help me handle where is it? The Nidoqueen and then the Keldeo. So as long as neither of them are scarfed, then Zen Headbutt does a lot of damage to them. Won't one-hit KO, but it can help clean up kills late game. Gunk Shot specifically for Clefable because I need to have a way to answer that. And U-turn for momentum because this team really thrives off of momentum. Speed invested to outspeed, max speed superior, and then the rest into attack, a little bit sprinkled into special defense. So I have a way to maybe handle the superior's attacks a little bit better. Scizor. Oh, actually, I want to go back to Diancie for a second. I'm running Heal Bell on Diancie. I debated between Stealth Rock and Heal Bell as the last move. I felt I was very prone to being slapped with Toxics, and I felt like Diancie would have a couple of opportunities to click Heal Bell if needed, where things were scared off the field and didn't want to attack it. So if I felt like the Toxic stacking was getting concerning, I had an answer with Mega Diancie. Anyway, Scizor with the Choice Scarf. I'm going to run the Jolly Nature because Jolly Nature at that speed stat outspeeds max speed superior, which is really notable. Also outspeeds wrong team. Outspeeds the Latias. Also outspeeds the Keldeo. It also outspeeds everything it needs to. It's not going to do any good damage to things like Nidoqueen or Clefable unless I click the right move, but it gives me momentum to get into the right pieces that can also pressure it really well. So I felt good about having that as an option. Bullet Punch, again, specifically for Clefable. Dual Wing Beat really helps me address subsets for either the Superior or the Keldeo. If either of them sub, Dual Wing easily breaks the sub on the first attempt, and then it does massive amounts of damage with the second one. So I felt really good about that. And then finally, Superpower, really specifically for the Snorlax, just because I needed to be able to hit it for really good damage in case that situation arose. And so I felt like Superpower was just a really good option to have. Nidoking, pretty standard set overall. I'm going to opt for a physical Nidoking here, notably because I want to have access to Sucker Punch. The reason why is the Latias. In case the Latias starts taking off, then Sucker Punch just kind of checks it. Won't one hit KO, but it easily will do more than like 60%. So just a really good way to clean up a chipped Latias if needed. Fire Punch for the Scizor, Poison Jab for things like the Superior or the Clefable on predicted switches, and then Earthquake for something like, I believe it's the Nidoqueen. So as long as I'm not dealing with Shukaberry Nidoqueen or Scarf Nidoqueen, I'm in a pretty good spot to pressure heavily with the Earthquake. And then speed invested to outspeed, max speed, Nidoqueen, and I believe that was the most notable one at like a 76 speed tier. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't really outspeed anything. Scizor is a 75, so I'm still outspeeding the Scizor. I'm not going to catch the Gladius or the Superior. I don't care to speed tie with the Moltres. I don't think it's going to show up, and even if it shows up, I have a pretty good answer just naturally with the Diancie, so I'm not too worried about that. Next up, Larry the Pyukumuku, opting for a Rocky Helmet. Innards out. Innards out in case I need him to be suicide against, namely, a surprise appearance from the Raichu. In case the Raichu shuts up with like a nasty plot or something, then I can sacrifice Pyukumuku to not lose control of the game. Or more notably, the Superior. If the Superior is starting to take off behind a sub with the Leaf Storm, then I can throw away Pyukumuku to regain control of the game. Recover because I need to get health back. Mirror Coat in case I can actually slap someone with that. Same with Counter. And then Baton Pass over Toxic because I don't see Toxic being effective in this match. Nidoqueen doesn't care. Clefable almost certainly won't care. Scizor won't care. Really likely to be on a sub or just out pressure me. Really likely to be in a sub or just out pressure me. Potential immunity. And then everything else has sub potential. So I didn't feel like Toxic was going to be a good, efficient route. Baton Pass gives me momentum, lets me get back into some of my damage dealers, so I felt like that was just a better option overall. Invested in a way with the defense that I don't get one or two hit KO'd by Bug Bite from an Adamant, Max Attack, Mega Scizor, and then I believe Sacred Sword's not going to do it either. So then the rest in special defense just to give me some good bulk overall to help deal with the Nidoqueen. Although Thunderbolt from a Nidoqueen is probably going to be too problematic for me to handle. It just gives me some good coverage to switch in on it. And then finally, Zapdos, heavy duty boots. I'm going to opt for pressure here for the aforementioned reason that the superior is behind a sub, spamming Leaf Storm is a problem. And so pressure is going to take down the PP of the Leaf Storm. I'm even running protect to force out more PP from the Leaf Storm just to minimize its ability to set up and sweep. If I can PP stall out the Leaf Storms and it doesn't have good ways to pressure with those anymore, I'm not too worried about Hidden Power Fire. I am obviously very worried about the Toxic or Leech Seed sets it could run, but as long as I can take away its ability to exert immediate damage, I feel like I can dance around it, and I am in a position to kind of force it out eventually. Pretty much max HP, pretty much max special defense, a little speed creep in case something's trying to speed creep me, but otherwise nothing too major. And then Heat Wave to hit the superior for good damage, force it out from behind a sub, as well as get some general chip on things like Nidoqueen and such. And then Discharge to fish for paralysis in case I feel like I need to fish for it on something like the Latias or the Keldeo. And so that's the team. That's what I've assembled. General game plan is walling out some of his pieces with my Zapdos Pyukumuku core, and then pivoting around between the Scizor, the Diancie, and the Cinderace and Nidoking as best as possible, and just exerting a lot of pressure. So we'll get into the match. I did play Queen Eyelene last season. I was able to secure a win. I do feel like I have a sense for her playstyle a little bit, and so I am going to try to lean into some of that a little bit with my predicts game. And then given that it's week one and people generally play more cautious in week one games, I'm going to try to play on that a bit as making I try to play on that a bit with making some predicts based on more conservative week one play styles. And we'll kind of dive into those as they come up. So going into the match, she's going to lead the Keldeo. I'm going to lead the Cinderace. My immediate assumption on a Keldeo lead is that it's going to be Scarf, and I'm not going to take any chances with my Cinderace on turn one. U-turn's not going to do a lot of damage anyway. There's very little reward, high risk for trying to attack with Cinderace. So I'm going to flee straight into Pyukumuku to kind of scout that out. It goes for flip turn, does no damage. I do 16% back, really effective turn one. Superior comes in. Obviously, is going to force the Zapdos out. My pressure is there. And then absolute worst fears realized. It is a toxic superior, really bad for me. I'm not in a good position to deal with that. So I'm in a really bad spot on turn one where my Zapdos is already poisoned and the superior hasn't even tried subbing or leaf storming yet. So really not an ideal spot for me. He's going to switch out into Latios. Latias. I'm gonna hard call that. I don't think Superior is going to go for Hidden Power Fire on turn two. It knows I have access to Hurricane. It knows I have access to Heat Wave. It's just really not in a position to be hyper aggressive on turn two or turn three and go for a hard Hidden Power Fire predict that I go into Scizor, and I'm going to call that and come in with my Scizor. Because I figured it either Leaf Storms and I'm in an okay spot with Scizor, or it subs and I'm in an okay spot with Scizor. So I come in with it. Latias shows up on a hard switch as well, and so I'm in a really strong spot. I am playing under the suspicion that the Keldeo is scarfed. I am going to assume that she did not double scarf on week one, although that is a risky play. And I'm going to stay in and go for a U-turn here, which was effective. I get in with my Nidoking for free. Again, I'm going to hard call here. She is going to know I have a fire move on Nidoking specifically for Scizor. That's a pretty obvious assumption to make, and I do, but I assume that she is going to flee into her counter for that, which would be the Nidoking. Nidoking, in this case, is likely running thick fat if it's switching into a fire move and just really wanting to wall it out. I assume she's going to flee out with Scizor because Scizor is in a spot to be one-hit KO'd pretty reliably there. And so I'm going to make a really ambitious call and go for Poison Jab on the predicted switch, which I get right. Snorlax comes in. Snorlax is no longer in a position to handle that. I'm going to go for Earthquake here. I just debated going Fire Punch, but I was concerned that Keldeo might come in on a predicted attack or Scizor might come back in. And I didn't want to be wrong on my guess, and I felt that Earthquake was just a good general damage dealer. Obviously, Latias wasn't going to come in on a Poison Jab, or Nidoqueen might come in, and if Nidoqueen came in on a predicted Poison Jab, then Nidoqueen just eats a bunch of damage, or is outright KO'd if it's not Chookaberry. So I felt like that was overall a safe call. Mega Evolves here. I go for Sucker Punch. Really unfortunate it does not KO. Really kind of throws me in a bad spot because now I'm in a spot where I need to guess right or I'm just in a really bad position. So if I sucker punch here and she roosts, then my Nidoking is just useless now against this Scizor. It'll be one hit KO'd by the next bullet punch. If I fire punch or earthquake here and she goes for bullet punch, my Nidoking dies. So I'm in a really hard position here. I need to get the predict right. She's going to decide to switch out. I'm going to fire punch on the predict that she was going to try to stay in and roost. I was wrong. Larry comes in. Larry's going to eat this surf without a problem. She's going to come back in with Scizor. Larry baton passes very effectively into Cinderace. She does not have a good answer to the Cinderace. I know I'm in a good spot to U-turn here. There's nothing that's going to come into this U-turn super well. I don't know what this Nidoqueen is yet, and I'm not quite positive. I think she could come back in with Keldeo, so I'm just going to play a safe option, click U-turn, and then come in with Scizor again. And Scizor's in a spot to claim the KO with U-turn, so I'm able to get an early KO on the Snorlax, which was probably one of the better Diancie checks. She comes back in with the Keldeo. I'm going to come back in with the Pyukumuku because she just doesn't have a way to exert pressure on it, which I know. The Scizor is going to come back in, which I expected. It does roost, unfortunately, because I can't exert pressure with the Pyukumuku, but I get Cinderace back in for free. Really easy opportunity there. I'm going to click Pyro Ball, do a lot of damage. I'm going to U-turn here. I'm aware that the Latias could be, because the Latias knows I have U-turn. I've revealed it at this point. I'm aware the Latias may be aware of the fact that I'm going to fish for a U-turn for super effective damage, and it could be a weakness policy set. I take that gamble knowingly because I have a pretty safe switch in here because I'm going to come in with Scizor. Either she attacks on the predict I go into Scizor, Mystical Fires, and outright KO Scizor, which is unfortunate, but it leads to a free revenge kill with my Cinderace, or she tries to set up here with like an agility or something else, or goes for a psychic attack, not expecting the switch out, although she would have if she had a weakness policy. But I come in with Scizor because I feel like that gives me the best amount of options depending on what she does. She's going to agility here, which is fine because I have bullet punch to easily claim this KO, which she knows forces her straight out, forces the Scizor back in. I'm going to switch back into Pyukumuku because I'm choice locked into bullet punch. Pyukumuku is going to recover here, I believe, because it is in a safe position to do so. Oh no, I baton pass. I do get that wrong, but I get a free window again with my Cinderace. So Pyukumuku hasn't done anything besides click baton pass and do damage with the Rocky Helmet, but it is directly resulted in 2 KOs because I've been able to claim the KO on this Latias, and then it was able to put Cinderace in a position earlier to get a combined KO with the Scizor on the Snorlax. So Pyukumuku is doing really good work as a pivot this game, just kind of forcing the Keldeo out because every time the Keldeo hits the field, it's not in a position to get any KOs on the Pyukumuku, and I'm able to do a lot with that. So the Latias goes down. I'm going to bring Pyukumuku back in here because it's in a good spot to come in on this Keldeo again. It's a free opportunity to click recover. I'm in a spot here where I know Leaf Storm can KO me, and I'm actually kind of hoping it does. I think in hindsight, I should have switched out. I kind of regret not going into Scizor. Again, the Hidden Power Fire is just such a hard predict, and she hasn't been making hard predicts this game, which has been playing to my advantage because I've been making some and I've been right. So I should be going hard predict into my Scizor here, or even my Cinderace. Cinderace is actually a pretty safe switch in, and overall, she's not going to have a coverage move for the Cinderace, and so Cinderace gets in for free against whatever the attack is, and is just immediately able to exert pressure. But my Pyukumuku doesn't die, which is unfortunate, so I don't get the enters out damage. It's too weak to check Keldeo for the rest of the game. It was just a misplay overall. I don't go for the U-turn there. I go for the Pyro Ball. I'm going to sack Pyukumuku here because Pyukumuku is just at too low of a health to be effective. The Nidoqueen comes in. It goes for Earth Power. What I'm not sure about with this Nidoqueen is if it's Scarf. If it's Scarf, then I'm not in a good position to bring in Nidoking. I'm not in a good position to bring in Diancie. I'm not in a good position to bring in Cinderace. So I don't know what the move is. I don't know what the item is on this Nidoqueen yet, and I need to be really cautious. So I'm going to come up with Zapdos. The Ice Beam is unfortunate damage, but it confirms what I needed to know, which was that it is not choice locked, which means all 3 of the pieces I just mentioned will outspeed it, which is needed information for me for late game, and Scizor will as well for that matter, because it's also a choice scarf. So my remaining 4 pieces all outpace this Nidoqueen, which is information I needed to have. I get a crit, nice crit, really helpful. I survived this by 1 HP, and then I get another crit. So really, really fortunate 2 turns for me, where I not only get a double crit, but I survive by just the smallest amount of HP to get that second crit, which just gives me a free window to come in with Cinderace and claim a kill because I can just get momentum on this U-turn. There are no switch-ins here um, for her. She could maybe come in with Scizor on the predicted U-turn because that would actually put her in a pretty good position overall. But I think after the U-turn, I'm probably in range for my Scizor to get a dual wing beats KO, although I'm not 100% positive. Anyway, I'm in a U-turn here. Just a really easy KO to get. She doesn't really have any other switch out options unless she's going to take risks. My Scizor is going to come in. Their Scizor is going to come in. I'm in a U-turn here. I'm going to sack Nidoking. I see what's at play here. It looks like it's going to be a trade-off game to finish this game out because I made the mistake of letting my Pyukumuku eat that Leaf Storm when I shouldn't have. And I have the numbers advantage, so I just need to preserve it. I know it's going to click knockoff here. It's just a really safe click for it to do. Diancie can't come in on Scizor because of Bullet Punch. Everything else doesn't want to eat the knockoff. I need to keep my Scizor healthy for late game if necessary. So my Nidoking's going to go down here. I'm going to come in with my Cinderace to click Pyro Ball because she has no switch-ins that don't automatically die. Scizor dies to Pyro Ball, but she needs to preserve that for the Bullet Punch. The Keldeo dies to Pyro Ball, but Keldeo is the most important piece she has left, so she's not going to sack it. So she sacks the Superior. That comes in. I don't have Sucker Punch for it. It's going to Surf, does a lot of damage. I'm going to Bullet Punch here. She's not in a great, or I guess this is essentially a 50-50 guess. I'm going to get it right. This is a kind of a turn where it could have gone either way. I'm really fortunate I get the predict right here. She doesn't really have a safe switch out into Scizor because if I do a U-turn or I click dual wing beat, then the Scizor is in a bad position. I just outright win the game. I think she should have taken the risk in hindsight. I think it was worth taking. I don't automatically win with Bullet Punch here unless I sack or unless I KO this Superior, or not the Superior, this Keldeo. But with Keldeo gone, my Scizor's in a really good spot now. I'm going to come in with Diancie just because I need to throw away a piece and get my Cinderace in safely. And the big thing here is I don't know what this last move is, and I'm really, really worried it could be Swords Dance, and I don't want to give the Scizor a chance to Swords Dance, so I can't just be sitting here and clicking Bullet Punch with my Scizor until I die. I need to sack this Diancie so that it can't set up because it knows I will have Mystical Fire. And so if I can force the Scizor to KO me, then I can come with my Cinderace afterwards, and Cinderace has a really easy time clicking Pyro Ball for the win. So, um, very risky game one for me. I took a lot of gambles on predicts. They paid off by and large. I was slightly misplaying my Pyukumuku there against the Superior. That was a strong misplay because it just shuts down the Keldeo from being effective, and the Keldeo was in a really, really close position to take control of the game towards the end here if I had misplayed that slightly. So I was able to stay alive and secure that. A solid 2-0 win for me. My Cinderace got to pick up 4 KOs in week 1, which is really nice. I've used Cinderace before in a league. It was effective. It was not that effective. And then Scizor has not been effective for me the times I've used it. I've been misplaying it. So Scizor was able to be a really good effective pivoter here. The speed stat I was able to hit with that Scarf was really, really helpful in keeping the Latias and Superior in check. Unfortunately, the Keldeo was also Scarfed, which did impact my ability to play that. But strong 2-0 victory, moved to 1-0 in the league. I really hope I do not play Queen Eyelene again. I was able to make some good judgment calls on what kind of sets she would bring and made some accurate predicts. I do not expect I could be that fortunate in a rematch, so I'm hoping this is the first and only time this season we run into each other. But it is a strong start in a really, really stacked division this season. I think it's a really competitive division as compared to last season. I think there's just a lot of strong competition overall. So I'm going to need to be on my A game to stay strong in this division. But 1-0, really content. I will be back with more videos in this series, so stay tuned.